Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers lose in Phoenix on Tuesday, but Anthony Davis continues to look great. Lots to talk about. We'll do it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. Always free, never behind paywall. And we appreciate everybody checking out Locked On Lakers on YouTube, a fast-growing channel. Dare I say, Andy, the fastest-growing channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
Until somebody tells me differently. And
I checked them all.
Each and every channel.
It was a busy little Tuesday for me today, but I got through them all, and it turns out you're correct.
That's what I thought. So we appreciate it. It's a nice community that is developing there. Great place to go to interact with other Lakers fans, to leave us questions and comments and stuff like that. We love to use those for the show. Even if we don't read them specifically, a lot of times we get inspiration from them. So please do to leave those, but again, we will use them directly if you make it really clear you're asking us a question. So 115 to 105, the Lakers lose in Phoenix on Tuesday night. On the one hand, Andy, the 3-game winning streak is over. The Lakers fall to 5-11 on the season. They've got back-to-back games in San Antonio coming up on Friday and Saturday. A good chance to make a couple of those games back at the very least. On the other hand, there were some good things to come out of this. I think we talked about it on Tuesday's show, Andy. Like, you wanted to see, first, would Anthony Davis continue to dominate against a better team? 3 games, bad front courts, bad teams. Phoenix, legit front court, legit team. We got some evidence there. And then the Lakers, you want to see them look like a competitive team against a better Western Conference squad. Got some evidence there too.
You want, first of all, just to put Anthony Davis's game.
Yeah, let's start with him.
The game in perspective and what he did tonight. 37 points on 11 of 17 shooting from the field, 15 of 16 at the line, 21 rebounds, 5 blocks, 5 steals. According to Lakers PR, Anthony Davis joined Bob McAdoo as the only other player in league history with a stat line of at least 30 points, 20 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 5 steals. AD is the only one with 5 blocks and 5 steals to go along with at least 30 points and 20 rebounds. So he quite literally made history in this game. And when you think about 30, 20, 5 and 5 with the 30 closer to 40, that's bat bleep insane, man. Like, I mean, that's crazy on just 17 shots. That's unbelievable.
It really is. And, like,
living again, at the line yet again.
But we want to see, as, Lakers fans, like, you want to see, okay, fine, show me. He's still very much in this prove it place. And not only did he show up and provide a phenomenal game against, Phoenix, second best team in the Western Conference. I believe they came into Tuesday's game with I think tied for the best point differential in the NBA. Real live team, Andy. And this was not only, I think, the best game Anthony Davis played in the 4-game stretch that he's had, with LeBron out and, putting up the big numbers. And I think it's the best game he's played as a Laker. Like, I can't think of one. I'm sure, maybe not the most consequential. There's obviously, the Denver series and, the game-winning 3-pointer. I'm not saying, but like in terms of a complete game, full-on dominance on both sides of the ball, efficiency, all that. I can't think of a better one than this.
Brian, were you not listening to the part where I mentioned how he made history? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you can put up a historic line and be like, and have it compare, like, because the numbers, but like, this was insanely good. And
But
and
but those numbers reflected the dominance on both sides of
I
the
guess
ball.
that's
Like
fair. I have
it,
a cold.
it's pretty damn hard to make history. Like, unless you're talking about somebody like LeBron or Kobe or Michael Jordan, Shaq, like guys like that who continually just made history on a regular basis. Steph, Kareem, those type of
Right, but I mean,
players.
like Davis is supposed to be in that category
Right,
of dudes.
but
He's
he
had some great games over the
of
course of his
course he
career.
has, but it that he, at the very least, this is the best, most complete, dominating game he's had as a Laker. I feel kind of goes without saying. Again, with the whole made history thing,
Well,
it's also just
you know what? I said it anyway.
it's also just great to see this though in succession,
Uh-huh.
because this damn sure is the best 5-game stretch he's had as a
Oh yeah.
Laker, as he, over, I'm guessing, the course of his career. It's hard for me to believe he's ever played this well over 5 games. Like, this reminds me of that period that we covered with Kobe, where he had like 5, 7, whatever games it was in a row, 50 plus points, where you just start losing track of it. Like AD in the 35-ish points, 17-ish rebounds thing has become routine during this period. It's incredible.
And when you look at sort of the habit building of this, um, the more Anthony Davis goes out and dominates and just plays like this and establishes himself as, oh yeah, the conversation about who are the best players in the NBA needs to include me. And the point isn't like arguing about, is he better than Giannis? Is he better than Durant? Jokic, came back from COVID on Tuesday and put up like 40, 15 and typical Jokic line. There are a lot of great players around there. The point is Anthony Davis needs to be at a level where he is one of those people that you talk about. Like, is he in there? Like, both sides of the ball when you take everything, and he hasn't been on a consistent basis. And the more games in a row you talk about that consistency of showing it back to back to back to back to back, he, I think, gets in the habit of playing like this. And so if there is a silver lining to LeBron missing 5 games, this would be the fifth one, right? The
Be the fifth in a row. Chris Haynes said during the broadcast on TNT that league sources told him that LeBron is expecting to play on Friday against San Antonio. Given some of Haynes' sources, it wouldn't surprise me if said source was LeBron.
That was my guess.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying I'm guessing it is.
He's in the league. He'd be a league source.
Especially, too, if the Lakers practice either Wednesday or Thursday and LeBron gets that full contact practice that I've been saying, I would personally be surprised if he plays without having one of those first, especially if they practice either one of those days. It feels like a really good shot.
So the silver lining to doing this without, having this stretch without LeBron is it has forced, in a lot of ways, Anthony Davis to adopt this role and to adopt this this aggressiveness, the Lakers to turn to him. And so, the hope becomes that when LeBron plays on Friday, that this doesn't change. I mean, I don't know. I've not checked in to see if Jakob Poeltl, for example, is expected to be back for San Antonio. He missed the game the other night when the Lakers played them, but that becomes a better challenge for Davis if Poeltl can play, because that is it's not a good team, but he's a very good defensive center. And I love the idea of him going in there and kind of rising to the challenge and doing it again. The flip side for the Lakers was, do you look at this game and feel like the Lakers cleared that bar of, okay, they won 3 in a row against really bad teams, against deeply flawed teams, and only really had one sort of, I guess, two of those, I guess, were pretty comfortable. Do they look credible against a real live, playoff contender? So we'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Turo, the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts across the US, UK, Canada, and coming soon to Australia. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget. Book an SUV or minivan for a family road trip, a pickup truck for some bulky errands. Just test drive a new electric car that you've always been wondering how it fits into your daily life. You can also just find an affordable economy car if you're on a budget, or you just need to get from A to B. As the old saying goes, sometimes you just got to drive somewhere. Many Turo hosts even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Turo.com.
So in your mind, Andy, did the Lakers kind of, again, you win, you lose, whatever, like, had they been just annihilated in this game, shown up, gotten run off the floor by a Suns team that has played reasonably well, but is also missing Chris Paul.
They've been playing really well though without Chris Paul.
No question. They've done. They got off to that really, really, really shaky start, and everybody's like, "Oh, wait!" And now you look up, and again, the numbers indicate the Suns.
Turns out they just don't care if Robert Sarver's around.
Yeah.
Just like
turns out he was not the inspiration for like their any good moments the Suns have had. It was not like, let's go win one for Rob.
Yeah, I actually think they do. First of all, and this is something we'll get into before the show ends, the spirit that they showed just with the ejection involving Patrick Beverley, who just trucked DeAndre Ayton as he was lording over Austin Reeves. He had been fouled, which was called a flagrant foul by Devin Booker, and Booker was over Reeves in the beginning, and then Ayton was over him. Patrick Beverley didn't like it, took exception, knocked him over, got ejected. But that fight from Patrick Beverley, I thought in a lot of ways was emblematic of the fight that they showed throughout this game. Anthony Davis said afterwards, he thought they played well. They just didn't make shots. And to be clear, their inability to make shots was extreme. They shot 18% from behind the arc, which goes back to the beginning of the season when the Lakers were shooting unspeakably bad from distance. They also had 17 turnovers, gave up 16 points in the process. You can get away maybe with one against a high-end team without LeBron. Definitely can't get away with both of them.
Generally, it is really hard to win an NBA game in the year of our Lord 2022 with 4 3-pointers.
But heading into this game, though, like I looked up their stats the last 10 before this loss against Phoenix, they were shooting 36% from behind the arc. Like they have for the, I guess, middle 2/3 of the early part of this season, they've no longer been that team that has just been absolutely abysmal and dysfunctional from three. Like they've been fine. They've been perfectly good enough to win games. It seems like they've gotten their defense back on track after, a middle period that was getting kind of mucky, I think, because the whole we can't make shots thing was weighing on them. But also, too, what makes me think that if nothing else, they could legitimately be building towards something is this roster is now a better version of itself in terms of available players, in terms of who Darvin Ham is playing, doesn't have to play anymore, and then the use of Russell Westbrook. Like, once LeBron is back, this feels like the full version of what the front office, I think, envisioned as best case scenario for this team. And I feel like we've seen enough to feel like they are moving in the right direction. Whether they can do it strongly enough to really make some noise moving forward, that's another story.
Well, sure, because like I said, I think we talked about this some on Tuesday show. Like there's regular bad, and then there's 2 and 10 bad. Like 2 and 10 puts you on pace. You're winning 2 out of every 12 games. You're on pace to win you're on pace to think mathematically to win like 12 games all season. Or 13 games, maybe that much all year. And so, like, they're not that bad. I mean, no team with LeBron and AD is going to be that bad, assuming both of those guys can play. What I find interesting about this is that, to some degree, I think the performance against Phoenix and the credibility of the team against Phoenix is entirely related to what AD did. And we talk about AD elevating the team and AD being, the difference between the Lakers being a good team or, competitive, whatever it is, like that thing that separates them from a more ordinary version of themselves is the difference between Anthony Davis as an all-star and Anthony Davis as the guy he was on Tuesday. Because you look around the box score, Andy, and you mentioned the 3-point percentage. Not only was it bad, they only made 4 of them. You can have nights where you get a better volume and, you're still not getting, efficiency, but at least you're getting a few more threes. They didn't get either one. They got no efficiency and no 3-pointers. Troy Brown and Patrick Beverley combined for 0 points. So that's 40% of your starting lineup did not score in Tuesday's game. You go down to the subs. Dennis Schroder played 20 minutes. He did not score. Wenyen Gabriel played 7 minutes. He did not score. And so, Lonnie Walker gave you 24 points on 18 shots, but Westbrook gave you 21 on 20 shots. That's not good offense. And yet the Lakers were competitive in this game, mostly because Anthony Davis kept them in it with 15 out of 16 from the free throw line. Underrated side note of this season, Anthony Davis has figured out how to shoot free throws again. That makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't
nightly production.
bad. He wasn't bad the last couple seasons, but shooting.
No, there's a difference between 70 and 80. He was at 70 last year and 80 this year. He's historically has been an 80% guy.
Being at this level where you really hate the idea of sending him to the line, to your point, that just takes it to another level.
Particularly too after, if he's going to continue to be a guy who plays closer to the basket. And, you look at, we've mentioned the stat that Spectrum, the Lakers station, put out that, this is as close as the average shot for Anthony Davis is closer this year than it has been, I think, throughout his career, certainly his Lakers career. On Tuesday, he took a grand total of 0 3-pointers, which brings his season average of 3-point attempts per night much, much closer to 1. That's a good place for it to be because this experiment of Anthony Davis as a 3-point shooter hasn't worked. Doesn't mean he can't take 18-footers, 17-footers, stuff like that. That jump shot still is valuable. But if he's going to be much closer to the basket, it also means he's going to go to the line more. And then that 80% figure, above 80%, 15 of 16 on Tuesday becomes even more important. But like the Lakers had a bad offensive performance basically across the board, except for Anthony Davis. And Davis's dominance, Walker was fine, but as a team, but Davis's dominance was the reason that game was close. It was the reason the Lakers were able to make runs and be winning at halftime. It was the reason the Lakers were competitive in the fourth quarter. If Anthony Davis plays at a normal all-star level, the Lakers lose this game. The game is over, I think, midway through the fourth quarter. So it just told me what a difference this version of Anthony Davis makes. And hopefully you add LeBron back to it and, the Lakers can build from there.
And speaking of this version of Anthony Davis, in terms of just everything you ever want to see from AD, there was a play I believe it was the first half where his left arm basically got caught on Devin Booker's head and neck area. It was like a weird sequence where he got tangled up. He landed kind of weird.
Looked like he was down. Funny bone.
Yeah, it was his funny bone, but he was down for a while. And, initially you're thinking with everything with Anthony Davis, oh crap, here we go again. But he ended up playing through it. And, thankfully it was his, not his dominant hand. So that made it easier for him. And you'd see him often balling his fist or sort of stretching his arm out, but getting through that and then playing at that level, continuing to just eat the glass, continuing to block shots, knowing that, he might have been favoring one arm or one hand, still at that just literally historic level. Again, it just felt like the full package from Anthony Davis on every single level. I think talk about it in the next show more in depth. So I want to get into Patrick Beverley, how you go about balancing this and maintaining this when LeBron is back. But there is no question that the last 5 games has been an absolutely just epic and reassuring, if anything, maybe even re-energizing performance from Anthony Davis from the fans' perspective.
Yeah.
If not the franchises.
You need certain things. Like the Lakers needed to figure out something for Westbrook to be that could be positive. That is a thing that had to happen this year for the Lakers to have a chance, assuming they don't make a trade. And they have done that. I'm not saying it's great every night. Westbrook was fine on Tuesday, had some good moments, had some bad moments. He was not part of the turnover parade, which is nice. But he was not efficient offensively and like still struggling to figure out how to get his own shot. And those are his least effective moments. But I think we could all agree that they have found something for Russ to do that doesn't harm the team.
Yeah.
And the other thing was Anthony Davis needs to be better, and he needs to be better in a meaningful way. Like talk the talk of being a guy who thinks he's one of the best players in the league and wants to be treated as such. Okay, go play that way. And we haven't seen it to this point this year. It's not that he's been terrible. He could continue doing everything he'd been doing and make the All-Star team because he's been good enough to do that. That makes you a really good NBA player. It's hard to make All-Star teams, but it's not good enough for the Lakers. And so some version of this, I'm not talking 30 and 20 every night. That's not sustainable. But some version of this guy is what the Lakers are going to have. And so we'll see what happens there. We will see what happens with Patrick Beverley and whether he will be available for Friday's game in San Antonio. I suspect the answer is no. But we'll talk about the ejection and what was that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, which of course you do, you are listening to one as we speak or watching one as we speak, you can find those at BetOnline as well. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts.
So I'm sure by now most Lakers fans have seen the highlight. Austin Reeves goes to the basket, trying to take Devin Booker on one-on-one. Now, Devin Booker, just as a side note to some of this, is somebody who I think has taken the criticism of his defense very seriously. And you know, I don't think he's still great, but like he has talked about how like this is something that he believes he wants to be better at. He doesn't like being the guy that they attack, opposing. He's not all offense, no defense, whatever.
He's absolutely gotten better.
He absolutely, I agree. But so he kind of, you know, he does. I mean, up until the end, does a pretty good job against Austin Reeves. Follows through, hits Reeves in the face, ends up getting a call for a flagrant for it, which, you know, the foul was called initially, might have ended up being reviewed. We'll never know what on earth, too, would have happened had nobody said anything. But Booker kind of got a little chest puffy after this play, which I took to mean, who the bleep do you think you are, Austin Reeves, coming right at me? Like, I don't know. I don't take that from you. Argue about whether or not Austin Reeves has earned the right to try to take Devin Booker on one-on-one. Different story. So DeAndre Ayton, who was nearby, kind of lingering under the basket in a help position, I suppose, wanders over to Reeves, who is now on the floor, clearly talking to him, and is sort of looming over him in that sort of taunting way that you're not supposed to do in the NBA anymore. Again, the refs might have ended up calling it right away. We'll never know, because Patrick Beverley came charging from across the court and checked Ayton in the back and sort of sent Ayton rolling over Reeves. Ayton and AD end up kind of pushing and shoving. Patrick Beverley is pulled away by other people. Mayhem ensues. Beverley's ejected.
Beverley, by the way, knew he was getting it. He didn't even stick around to find out what happened. I believe he left.
He just went through the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then
my work here is done.
It all gets sorted out. Booker gets a technical. Reeves, it's like Am I describing was that a fair, adequate description of what happened here?
Yeah.
And so, but the questions I have are more related to, is this sort of thing the kind of thing that you want from Patrick Beverley? Because this is all part of the Pat Bev experience.
Well, in this game specifically, absolutely. Because the way I saw it, Patrick Beverley simultaneously stood up for Austin Reeves and got himself ejected in a game where he had 0 points and was minus 17, team worst. That is the very definition of a teammate sacrificing for the greater good.
Yeah.
Like you can't ask for anybody to be more selfless in that moment, because I fear Darvin Ham would have kept him on the court, and it wasn't really helping a lot in this game. I mean, unfortunately, the alternate seems to be Dennis Schroder, who's been struggling a lot too. But you got to pick your battles. But I would also say broadly too, I think it's a good thing, because you have a lot of new faces together on this team. They've gotten off to a rough start. It's been better of late, but they still have to do a lot of, fighting on the court to get themselves back into a position to be in the playoffs. And we've talked before about like how that uphill climb can start feeling very psychologically daunting. Especially for guys like LeBron and AD, Russ, Patrick Beverley, Schroeder, guys who've been in the league for a while, who know what time it is, when with this sort of stuff and when that time may be up. So I think seeing Beverley do something like that on behalf of team solidarity and standing up for one of his own, I think that's a great thing. And to a man afterwards, whether you're talking about Darvin Ham or Anthony Davis or Russell Westbrook or Austin Reeves himself, everybody seemed very appreciative and in approval of what Patrick Beverley did.
I think this is one of those moments, and this is one of those things where you look at it and you do kind of wish the Lakers had more reinforcements. And that, look, Dennis Schroeder has barely played. He's played one. I thought he looked good in his second game. He was a non-factor in his first, and he was a non-factor in the third. Lakers need, if they, if this is going to work, like they're going to need Schroeder to be good.
Yeah,
because Beverley, I think, is not. And I'm not saying he's been universally terrible. I'm not saying he doesn't offer certain things on defense, and there aren't matchups.
He had 10 rebounds in this game.
Did. But you mentioned the plus minus. In isolation, any individual plus minus can be misleading.
There was a period like a week ago where he had the highest net rating on the team. So
right. I'm not saying he's been universally bad or that he doesn't have utility. The problem is when you are carrying his complete and total lack of offense. It's hard to do without a better supporting cast. So maybe a better supporting cast helps you cover for Beverley more and get more out of his strengths, whether that's as individual defensive matchups or whatever it might be. But I think, for me at least, I have certainly reached a place where I do not think 29 minutes of Patrick Beverley is a good thing for this team.
Well, I mean, hopefully if Dennis Schroeder starts playing better, LeBron is back, because LeBron can be whatever position you need to be. In a perfect world, you see those minutes go down for Patrick Beverley anyway. I mean,
right. But you need Schroeder to play well. You need other guy, you need Lonnie Walker to continue to be, an efficient scorer. You need Kendrick Nunn to be a viable option. Played a little bit on Tuesday. And so like these things, the ultimate, I think, role for Beverley on this team is a guy who can do the kind of thing that he did on Tuesday, in terms of emotional leadership, in terms of edge, in terms of fire, in terms of all that sort of intangible stuff.
10 rebounds is dirty work.
Without being a player you need to rely on the floor. I feel like at this point you can use Patrick Beverley for very specific jobs on the court, defensive assignments, whatever it might be, and emotional leadership, the better. Because what you don't want to have to be doing is relying on him for 25 or 30 good minutes a night, because it's very clear he's not, he can't. It is really hard to play 4-on-5 offensively.
He has not been as good as they've needed him to be in this trade. And look, this was a trade you and I both liked. So I'm not going to be.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'm not going to be
I
disingenuous.
don't, but also too, it's like I don't think you can't. I don't know what else they could have traded THT for. And while THT has played, pretty decent for a surprisingly good Utah team, just because he's doing something in Utah doesn't mean he'd be doing the same thing in LA. And so that, you can't make that sort of one. I think we had pretty good evidence as to what he was going to be in LA. And it wasn't going to be something that would be terribly useful.
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think they've missed THT in the slightest.
No, that's what I'm getting at. Like,
Yeah.
Pat Bev has been, and unless you can say, well, then they should have traded him for someone else. Okay, who? People I don't think were banging down the door to get Talen Horton-Tucker off the Lakers roster. So, I'm not going to go back and crush management for that trade, even though it hasn't really worked in a meaningful way.
No, the biggest problem with where we are with Patrick Beverley, if you want to link it back to THT, is just the total and utter mismanagement of THT's contract and career since he was with the Lakers.
Right. In some ways, it's actually kind of fitting that the Lakers were unable to extricate themselves from that level of mismanagement by managing to make a pretty good trade at the end. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Right. But
so I actually feel better about it.
But that's not Beverley's fault. But
it is not.
But bringing it full circle, what he did tonight, I think, is in a lot of ways what you want from Patrick Beverley on your team. And to be fair to Beverley, I think he picked his moment that was.
By the way, I didn't mean it, but he still has, of anybody who's played significant minutes, the highest net rating on the team.
Yeah. And I think, Patrick Beverley, I think in a very self-aware way, can sometimes turn into the Patrick Beverley show. He is nothing if not a very cognizant performer. He spent a lot of time this offseason doing the rounds on ESPN for a reason. He now has a podcast that traffics very well. He's got a very colorful, big, entertaining personality. And sometimes that goes sideways. We've seen it over his career. But in this particular moment, I think what he did with shoving DeAndre Ayton was neither purely performative at all. I think it came from a real place. And I also don't think it hurt the team at all. So I'm cool with it. I really am genuinely cool with it. I actually think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think what it really made me think of first and foremost was, wow, it would be great if this team was built in a way that they could get the most out of what Beverley can still give them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they are. To where you could look at it and say, like, hey, let's, that net rating is a meaningful, guys. And let's see what we can do to maximize that, because I do think that it's not that he's not useless, but it's just hard to carry on this particular team. It's really hard to carry a guy for 29 minutes a game doesn't score.
He needs to be more of a specialist.
Yeah. So, all right, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you go to see the show. No show on Thursday. It's Thanksgiving. We're just not doing that. So, but yeah, the Lakers play on Friday in San Antonio, Friday and Saturday, back-to-back games. LeBron expected to come back and play in that game on Friday. We'll see what happens if he plays both ends of that. But a chance for the Lakers to win a couple games and improve that record and keep the forward momentum going. 2 games on the road, but against bad teams. See what happens there. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving.